Hey friends, welcome back. First thing I gotta say is wow. Thank you for all your support, your outpouring of messages and likes and views of the video. Um, like I said yesterday, that certainly wasn't my intent, but um, pretty awesome. So thank you for that. And I hope that you got something out of it. I know it was kind of all over the place yesterday, but I do hope that you got something out of it, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen and hear what I had to say. So, several people have reached out just privately and expressed their gratitude and how much it spoke to them. So, like I said, that wasn't my main intent. It was a secondary benefit, and it's already paying dividends. And I will say too, it's already been paying some dividends for myself as I've gone through this process. Just from last night in 24 hours, it's been pretty incredible. So today I had the opportunity to dive into the book, the one I talked about yesterday. So this Leading with Character book. Oh, and it's got like greasy fingerprints on it. Sorry. So I started on this today. I couldn't put it down. It was really good. A lot of what's covered in here, especially in the first introduction and in the first few 20 plus pages that I read, is a lot about moral character, right? And really, and please stick with me as I go through this, just trying to refresh my memory. And it's fresh in my memory because I just read it, but just some of the things that I learned in here, and just some of the concepts and stuff that are really incredible around the differences between some of these things. I probably should have highlighted these before I jumped on here on camera to talk to you, but really around character and the growing of your character in the culture side of things, and not just corporately. There, the book starts to talk about corporate structure and really the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. Like, how in the world could that happen with everything and the checks and balances that were in place? And it really came down to this lack of character. And it's just crazy to me to see. Here it is right here. So where the downfalls came. So there's two things that are kind of called out in here. It's something to think about. And I'll go back to Nick Gooden because he's been such a great coach. But just in terms of the cognitive stuff that's involved in this and how it processes in your brain, and the two perspectives that this talks about are really around performance character, right? That drives what we achieve. So people are not typically flawed in their performance character, and things that attributes of that's the what, right? That's the what of your makeup and your character, and that's not really anything that can be necessarily challenged from a morals perspective. So in here, right, there's a chart around being focused, persistent, confident, positive, decisive, courageous, tough-minded, ambitious, reliable, disciplined, fortitude. Of course, those can be effective. You can have certain levels of those, that type of thing, but you don't see a lot of these moral failings happening within those things. But the how is, and how you achieve it, is the moral character, right? And that drives how we achieve our goals, both personally and professionally. And those are things like moral integrity, honesty, kindness, trustworthiness, humility, compassion, gratefulness, generosity, moral courage, and the last three are really interesting too, right? Love, empathy, and loyalty. And that drives how we achieve things and how we build our legacy and how we're known for our character. So the beginning of the chapter goes through, what I think probably a lot of you have heard, like, what will people say at your funeral, right? They're not gonna talk about the degrees you have or what ranks you were able to rise to or what kind of car you drive, right? It comes down to that character and that integrity and your values and that type of thing. So it's been really interesting. I'm going to spend a ton of time on that today because I do encourage you all to go check out the book. I think it's already paying dividends in terms of the content that's in it and how great it is. But I did want to talk through this journal in the first prompt. So I went through this tonight, and it warns you in here, right, that this is going to be one of the hardest things that you've ever done. And it is, as I mentioned yesterday, it was 150 prompts. It's actually, as I looked into this, it's a 90-day schedule plus a 60-day follow-up. So there's really a 93 months of commitment to see this done. But taking all those things into account, committing simply 10 minutes a day is what this book and this journal is asking you to do to develop this personal credo. So I wanted to read the first prompt and get a little bit vulnerable again, just in terms of myself personally, as this is kind of a therapeutic thing for me. But maybe you relate to some of these things. I know my situation is probably unique, but maybe somebody out there will have experienced some of these things, right, that contribute to this first question. So the first one, which I read last night, is: what are major themes in your life story thus far, such as overcoming obstacles, driven to succeed, fear of failure, negative private voice, never give up, low self-esteem, and so on. So, I spent 10 minutes, probably a little bit more, just kind of numbering in the list. An OCD person in my mind just numbered all these, and I came up with 12 different things. Some of them are related to each other. Some of them are completely, separate, just random thoughts. But I'll read them, and you can, as the listeners too, kind of judge. I started drawing some arrows and circling some, between ones that are related and kind of interconnected. So the first one that I came up with was personal hardships. That's been a major theme of my life stories thus far. And then in parentheses, right, I put several different things. So finances, struggled with that for a long time. Death, of course, with my first wife. Abuse in a couple different situations for me personally, but also some of those close around me, and trauma, and what all those things have affected and how that's led to personal hardships in my life. Number two is being the caretaker. So if you don't know, with my first wife, with Rebecca, for the time that she was sick, I was the primary caregiver for her, going through chemotherapy and treatment and all those types of things. So I've kind of felt like that, that caretaker role has been something that's kind of, I don't know, a theme. It's been a theme in my life. And granted, it's only been in the past 5 years or so, but it seems to be kind of a consistent theme. Number three is related a lot to what I talked about last night with the weight loss and the food addiction, and that is just low self-esteem and lack of confidence. And part of what I want to do with this too is to remove that stigma specifically for males. I know several people, males, that struggle with their weight, struggle with food addiction. And while they may not show it on the outside, when you ask questions and when you talk about it, right, it does lead to those self-confidence issues, right? That low self-esteem. This blog and this vlog is a great example of that. I'd say, 2 months ago, you wouldn't catch me dead behind a camera and being able to talk to you and have the confidence to be able to speak and share this stuff with you. But by addressing that, and it's been a lifelong thing, I now feel confident and enabled to be able to do this. So the fourth thing that I wrote down was imposter syndrome. There's actually a whole portion of that within this book talking about imposter syndrome and how people that consider themselves leaders often face that. They face that fear of somebody uncovering them, that they're a fraud, or they may not know what they're talking about, and somebody smarter than them at something, and it's the thing that actually produces chemicals in your brain, right, and leads to anxiety and stress and depression because of this imposter syndrome. So look, in that book, look at that. Another resource for that is there's a great podcast by Seth Godin. Akimbo is his podcast, but there's a whole podcast he did on imposter syndrome. It's really interesting, and it ties very closely to this book. For me, the imposter syndrome too is just related to the fact that I don't have a college degree. Didn't finish college. I didn't finish it. But I've been able to kind of have a good career and make decent money without that college degree. But I always fear that as kind of one of those things that somebody's going to lift up the carpet and be like, "Oh, you don't have a degree. You're not worthy of this or whatever." But I think over time, I've proven that that's not necessarily true. Number 5 was impulsive decisions. And that relates back to, that's kind of a root cause for me of some of the personal hardships, right? From a financial perspective, a relationship perspective. So I have those actually arrowed together and tied together. On the positive side of things, the 6th one, a theme for me is being driven to lead and to prove myself wrong. So it's kind of going against that imposter syndrome of, wanting and desiring to lead and to be able to prove to myself that I'm not an imposter, that I should have the confidence. And it's just this vicious kind of cycle that goes back and forth until you kind of get over the hump. 7th one, very closely related to the first, so overcoming obstacles and resilience. And I wasn't looking at the first ones when I wrote these, but kind of the themes that came out just validated, what I had started with, that came first top of mind, maybe from a positive perspective. The 8th one was being an only child. I have brothers and sisters, or half brothers and sisters. They were around when I was little, but mostly growing up, I was an only child with my parents. And I don't know how many of you deal with this, male or female, right? The need or desire to impress your parents. Specifically, I put impress my dad, make him proud, and make feel worthy, right? And feel like, I've got, I don't know, I'm driven to lead. I'm proving myself wrong, but I'm also, impressing him along the way. Number 9 I wrote down was wanting to make a difference. So making a global impact. So that's been a theme of mine for a long time, especially as I've gotten into the community building stuff and really over the past, I guess, 8 years of ecosystem building and helping entrepreneurs and innovators of believing that there's something bigger than just, maybe bigger than just Peoria, that there's a state or a national or a global impact that I can have with that. Number 10 is being a connector. This is something that a friend of mine, Cecilia, she's a great connector in Tulsa, kind of called out as kind of this unique skill set. I go to that Superman thing I talked about, that what makes you a badass type of thing, just being a connector, trying to, take these disparate resources that are, one corner over here and another corner over here, and being able to make those connections and see connections where other people might not. 11 ties back to 9, so belief in something bigger and better, so an evolution, right, like I said, to a national stage. And then 12 has been, I guess, revealed to me as I did when I blogged back in 2016. And once again now with this vlog, where I had around this having a story to tell and to share. So that seems to be, a major theme in my life story thus far. And I'd say with all of these, so I close this up, set it aside, all these things I uncovered, a lot of them have really solidified in the past 5 years or so. With everything that's happened and everything I've gone through, a lot of them have solidified themselves and really come to light over these past 5 years. And I'll say, too, a lot of that has come with being able to go in, get counseling, have a therapist, be able to talk to somebody, and have them help reveal these things, too. The thing about impulsive decisions and impulsive emotions, right? That was something that my new therapist just here in the past, couple of months had kind of revealed just after telling him my story and everything that I've been through. That was a conclusion that he was able to make pretty easily and pretty distinctly from the conversation. So, really good exercise. It was tough, but I think my thing now is I'm going to take those, narrow them down. As I said, there's a few that are kind of interconnected and related to each other, and probably try to come out of it with 4 or 5 key themes that those can all be kind of condensed down into. I haven't looked at the next page yet because I don't want to necessarily look at it yet. To kind of influence that. And that's the thing too. They encourage, don't skip ahead. Don't try to do it faster than the 90 days. Do 10 minutes at a time. Be very intentional about it. And kind of work forward. So that's what I'm doing. I wanted to take a little bit of a deep dive to tonight. We're already at 15 minutes, so maybe I won't. But I do want to take a deep dive at some point into the food addiction piece. As I've built the Instagram account, my wife's helping me do that now too. There's not a lot of talk about that. There's not a lot of accounts about that from a male perspective, specifically around food addiction, recovery, all those types of things. So it's something I want to spend some time on, specifically addressing the males that are in the audience that are listening that may have gone through or may have a similar struggle. But we'll talk about that at a later day. So thanks again for joining. I hope you'll able to get something out of it today. I know it's just a lot of sharing of what I wrote down. I'm not sure, if some of those things applied to you or were relatable to you, but just kind of wanted to get them out there as kind of the basis for, those major themes. Come back tomorrow, talk about maybe the next prompt, but also what I did with categorization, and hopefully have some more notes highlighted and a little bit more organized from the book itself. And what I've been able to get out of it. So thanks again for joining. Hope this was valuable. Thanks to those that have subscribed to the channel. That's just really cool. Not something I expected, but thank you for that. So I will sign off for tonight and hopefully talk to all of you, see all of you tomorrow, and appreciate you, every single one of you, for checking this out. Talk to you soon.